Hey folks, David Stewart here. Let's talk about turning off the internet. Somewhat dissonant message here, considering you're watching this on the internet and I make my living from the internet. But a couple weeks ago, the internet went down for basically the entire location, the entire local area that I live in. Really, this huge area of California got no internet for like 2 days. And it turns out it was because somebody crashed their car into a fiber optic line, and everything in the internet was going through this Comcast backbone, which meant like you couldn't even access the internet through cell towers. Or if you did, it was so slow, it was practically off. So no one had internet. I didn't have internet. Kids didn't have internet. No one around me had internet for like a day and a half, 2 days. This was a really good thing, and it definitely put some things into perspective. So, you know, I make my money from the internet. I sell my books on the internet. I make videos on the internet. You're watching me on the internet. We have this device that makes internet available to us all the time in our pockets. And so it's really hard to turn off the internet. And in some cases, we don't even realize what life is like without the internet. But when this internet was out for a day, it's like it reminded me of why the 90s felt so good for lots of teenagers like me. I'm not a teenager now, but I was a teenager in the 1990s. Why then people are so nostalgic for the 90s or nostalgic for the 80s. And it was because basically there was no internet. Internet is really awesome, but you're kind of nostalgic for that time because of the way that you were able to focus on the moment better and a bunch of things. So we couldn't stream music, obviously, like you couldn't turn on Spotify or whatever and stream music, which is one of the ways that my kids and I tend to listen to a lot of music. My kids are constantly exposed to music. Well, that's fine. I have a huge collection of physical media, specifically of vinyl records. And so we got to go through those and listen to those, including old stuff like Frank Sinatra, even older stuff like Benny Goodman, you know, and newer stuff too, metal stuff, pop stuff, got all kinds of things in the vinyl record collection. And there's something cool about listening to a vinyl for a bunch of reasons. So you have to physically put the record on and put the needle on, so it's a little bit less convenient in that sense, but it sounds good. And you have this big album art, so you can look at the album art while you listen to it, and you can read the names of the songs or look up the lyrics, and we can talk about, you know, you can see a picture. We listen to Thriller, you see a picture of Michael Jackson, and so the kids go, oh, that's what Michael Jackson looks like. You know, that's what the kids can see. You know, who's singing with him? It's Paul McCartney. He's on this other record, you know. So listening to physical media is a different experience. You tend to be more focused on it. It's less background noise. It's less immediate. You have to really think about what you're going to put on. And of course, it's harder to skip around the tracks. It's possible. You know, you can look at the grooves and kind of move the needle around. That's totally possible. But you tend to just listen to one side and then flip it over and listen to the other side. And it gives you a good 40 minutes worth of music, and it's a good experience. This kind of cascades, right? You read physical books. You sit down, you read, you go outside and play. You don't worry about somebody calling or texting, or I wonder how so-and-so's doing. Maybe I'll text them. You just have to be in the moment with the kids because none of that stuff was functional. So that's what you're doing. I'm not worried about like, oh, I wonder how this video's doing. Let me check my comments real quick. You know, maybe I'll look up this, you know, I want to know this fact. Oh, we're talking about a fact. How do I look it up? I can't look it up. I have to just move past wanting to know some little factoid or piece of information. You have to be a lot more in the now with that. And because of that good experience, one of the things that my wife and I really have considered is just turning off the internet at a certain time of day. And I can do that through my router. Just have the internet go off and all of our devices are disconnected. And, you know, we just have to exist in the moment without anyone being able to email us or anything. You're not worried about work emailing you. You're just out of that thing that's constantly demanding your attention all the time, and you can focus on the moment. And this was a great gaming experience, by the way, in the 90s too. The whole thing about 90s consoles or early 2000s even is that it's distraction-free gaming. You know, you plugged in your console, you put the disc in maybe, or put in the cartridge, and you could just play and not worry about being interrupted. You could get out a book and read and not worry about it being interrupted. If you wanted to go to the store in the 90s, you just got up and went and didn't worry about like What if someone calls, or I wonder who wants to go with me. You'd call your friend, and if you didn't get a hold of them, you just did something else, or you go something and meet a friend, and then you guys would decide to do something else from there. Life was a lot different before this constant smartphone connectivity of the internet, especially. So anyway, it was a really good thing that we did, and it made us think a lot about how distracting it can be just to have that available, so that your phone beeps, and the first thing you do is go over and check on it. If it never beeps and it can't beep, it just really frees up a big portion of your mind to be more present in the moment. And that's great for being around with your kids. It's really good to be more present with your kids and to be really in the moment with them, because they're in the moment. They're not really plugged into the internet. My kids don't have internet access. They don't do the internet. They don't have social media or anything. So it's a better way to be on the same communicational level as your kids, and it feels good for you. It feels good to be free of distractions and just to feel like the outside world is not going to demand anything of you, because it can't, because you can't reach the outside world. So if the internet's off, or like a blackout happens, maybe that's a time to stop and reflect and be like, what is good about this? Well, I don't have any distractions. Yeah, I can't play World of Warcraft or something, right? But there's so many other great experiences you can have, including going outside and catching bugs with your kids. Those are really fun things to do too. And of course, if you're single and you don't have kids, there's so many great things you can do that don't require the internet. And there's a lot of work you can do that doesn't require the internet. You can work on a word processor, write your book, things like that. I did realize there was a lot of frustrating things that software. I have a large amount of software that requires internet connectivity in really dumb ways, and one of them was the Adobe suite, right? Because I use Adobe software for a bunch of things. I got to use Acrobat for all kinds of stuff with my publishing business. I have to use I use Photoshop for my book covers, for thumbnail. I use Photoshop for everything. And I realized that Adobe does this really stupid thing. I have Adobe fonts, and as part of their software management suite, they will delete my fonts that I've gotten from them, that I bought from them, off my computer because I haven't used them in a while. This was the weirdest discovery. I'm like, who put this feature in? This is the worst feature in the history of software. They're like, well, it's all on demand. You just download the fonts as you need them, and that way. And it's like, I'm not like running low on font space and stuff. So it's like I couldn't work in Photoshop. Even though I could launch Photoshop, my fonts were missing because I hadn't used them in 3 weeks or something. Like, this was some ridiculous amount of connectivity that made no sense at all. Yes, I could still, boot up Microsoft Word, and it's like, well, you're offline, but I can still open up documents and type on them. And I use modern MS Word. If I was using Word 2011 still, which I still have, I can still edit the documents in Word 2011. None of that stuff matters, So there's a ton of work that you can do that is great to do because it's more distraction free. The only hard thing is I realize that I rely on the internet to listen to a lot of music when I work. I don't listen to any kind of rock or anything when I work. I listen to basically just like ambient music, and it's to drown out like my tinnitus and the sound of my kids and stuff. And so it's like I had to basically work in silence because I just didn't have any of that locally. I'd never really thought about saving any of that locally, and I realized I may want some local music that is a little bit more passive and better for backgrounds and things like that. So anyway, I learned a lot from that little experience of just having the internet turned off for me. And I haven't enacted this, but it may be something that I do, is just set it up so the internet turns off at a certain time in the day. And that's just not an available thing for anyone in the family, including me and my wife. And we can just be a lot more present with our kids and know that work simply can't contact us. I don't have to worry about getting an email or an alert or, responding to a tweet or something like that. I just don't have to worry about that during that time. And because I can't access it, and so therefore I won't need to worry about it. And if there's some desperate thing, like I gotta have a meeting with someone, you can always like suspend it for a day if you really want to. But it's more one of those things that like you're in the living room playing with your kids, and you just know that your phone's not going to beep. There's nothing that's going to be able to get your attention. So, thanks so much, guys. I'll see you all next time. not too much new stuff to announce as far as books, but hopefully that is coming down the pipeline, including some stuff on Kindle Vella, and that is going to be launching on July 1st, and I have a few more little tidbits for you guys with that. So if you're interested in jumping on the Kindle Vella bandwagon and just trying that out, I have a few little tips that I figured out through their workflow that might be useful to you. So thanks so much, and I will see you all next time.